family traumas and generational curses. And that stuff is passed on generation to generation to generation until you have a curse breaker. And I'm a curse breaker. Welcome back to Uncivilized Rebirth. Here's a place where I share the things that I've learned over the past 42 years about going through really difficult times. And then also, I share a thing called the character trigger, which I've developed. And there's like the core of this program or of this channel that I keep wrapping back around to every few videos, and it's the character trigger. I want to share a story of where I started the development of this. So let's go back to 2022, the fall. Everything in my life was just collapsed. Everything that could go wrong had went wrong. And I tried different avenues. I tried different things just to feel like I was a success or to do a good job. And it just failed and failed and failed. And just, I had been through some horrible experiences just in that last 2 years. And so one night I was just sitting there and I was just fed up, just absolutely fed up. And so I just started writing down on this whiteboard everything that I wanted. Not like really like stuff wise, but it's like, what were my goals? Like, what was I after? Because I knew I wasn't going to give up, but I was literally just at my wit's end by myself, crying, literally no family, nothing, just miserable. A few years before that, like about 5 years before that, I had created the symbol for this channel. And I had created a company called Polymite Productions. And I wanted to start selling slings, and hopefully that I would make money off those slings, and I could, help my family, and then I could give back to the veterans community. And that failed, but the symbol still stuck with me. I was like, this is a cool symbol. Like, it's original. I like it. I'm keeping it. And so I started somehow, like, have you ever made something that's just evolving as it goes, and it's like, oh wait, this is kind of working. So I started just drawing that symbol there because it symbolized that I wanted something better. Like, I know for a fact that I have a bigger purpose in life. Because in 2016 or 17, I had a vision of my future. And I saw like these very detailed plans laid out of what I was supposed to do. Very detailed plans. And it made a lot of sense. But there was this recipe that was missing. It was like the soup that needed to be brought to the table for people to show up to the table. I was like, well, what is that? And I didn't really know what was missing, but something was missing. So go back to 2022. In my heart of hearts, like, this vision has just driven me through the darkest of days. Like, just driven me. Like, I cling on to it. On the days that are tough, I will wake up and I'll just look at that in my mind again. I'm like, I know I have a mission. So literally, I know, like, whatever I'm going through is to hone me into who I'm meant to be. So part of like the missing soup was me and who I was and who I needed to develop into. And then a program. There had to be something to give people to make them want to come here, to show up in this vision from what I saw. So I knew I had a bigger purpose and a bigger mission, and I would just write down at night, and I would just journal. And I started drawing this symbol at the top of the page every night. And I started just associating with the character that I wanted to be with this symbol. And then I started just down this massive rabbit trail when I went through my spiritual awakening. I started learning about symbols. I started studying secret societies. I started learning about the Knights Templar. I started learning about the Freemasons. I started learning about the spiritual realm. And I was just doing these deep dives in these different directions. I was at this point in time, I was um, building pole barns, and so sometimes we'd have like I'd have an hour drive to go out to where we were going to be building that day, and I would just be listening to YouTube channels or podcasts about these subjects. And I'll tell you what, like when you dive down the rabbit trail of a subject on YouTube, um, it takes discernment, I believe, and it takes the desire to want to learn, of course, because it's long form content. But you start putting together pieces of a puzzle. And the piece of the puzzle on this one that I put together that was so crucial was learning about symbols. I was like, well, what is the power of a symbol? Like, what makes that so wonderful? What does it unlock? When you dive down that rabbit hole and you really are seeking, your world completely changes. But what I right now want to share with a takeaway is that when you have a symbol and you have information that is attached to that symbol, when you think of that symbol, all of that information automatically populates. It populates in your brain. That's kind of magical because you don't have to think about like, oh, when did I learn this, or when did I see that, or when did I do that? It's like it automatically is all there. So I started associating the character that I wanted to be, like my attributes, the way I wanted to talk, the way I wanted to write, the way I wanted to conduct myself, my pursuits in life. Because after my spiritual awakening, everything changed. Like just everything. Like basically my soul came to the surface for about a month or two. It was very wild. And then I went back to my brain, which was like the programming of the last 42 years of like everything that I was told I had to learn. Because in this society, basically everything you're told, like of what you have to believe, if somebody tells you have to believe it, you really need to doubt it. You really need to question, why are they forcing you to believe this? What did they have to gain from it? So I started associating this symbol with the character I wanted to be. And so what I would start doing is like, it's like, how do I start being this person that perseveres? How do I be this person that does not collapse in chaos? How do I be this person that can put up with adversity? How do I be the person that doesn't run to people and have to like just pour out my heart and soul? You know, and be like, oh, well, I need somebody to listen to. That, I was like, how do I do that? Because that's who I've been all these years. I've been easily deceived. I have had kind of poor character from the way I was raised. I always had I needed somebody to go run and talk to when things collapsed. I never could sit there and be stoic and be like, all right, here's what's happening. Here's my emotions. Here's the facts. Here are my courses of actions I shall choose without talking to anybody. And that has to come to the point of trusting myself and having faith in myself. Because I started looking at myself, I was like, wait a second, I've learned to walk again. I've kicked MS in the ass. I've been through war several times. Only one of them was like very serious, but I overcame PTSD. I had a mild TBI, and I got through that pretty well. The VA says it's resolved. I got through a lot of childhood trauma and just a lot of just gnarly things. I was like, wait a second. If I were somebody else and I saw me, I would bet on me to make it through a tough situation. This part of my mustache always just falls down. I'm thinking about getting like this like beard wax that I can do on there that smells super good, and then it will hold it in place, but I just haven't pulled the trigger on it. So I was like, how do I become this man that I trust and that people will depend on? Because I started analyzing my character. My mustache. How many minutes? Okay, 9 minutes. So what I started doing is like, I just started putting together this thing where I was like, okay, I'm going to start pushing myself a little harder than I usually would in training. And then I'll imagine that symbol. And so what I started doing is like I started pushing myself so hard in training I would disassociate. I would just like totally just check out. Have you ever seen people after a run and they're not there? They have just put their soul into it and their personality is checked out. They're just like, ugh. So I would sit at a bike like on the highest level, and I would go for 45 minutes as hard as I could. And I would push through the pain, and I would start feeling the energy going through my legs. And then at the points when I would just want to give up, I would use this technique where it's like tapping, where I would tap, and as soon as I tapped a certain spot in my body, I would imagine the symbol, and so all that character would populate. It's like, this is who I want to be. I want to be stoic. I want to be. I want to persevere. I want to be thoughtful. And I started doing that, and I started seeing a difference. Like I would push past my physical limits each time, even if it was like 3 or 4 seconds, because I would remember my time. And I'm like, if I go past this for 10 seconds, that means I pushed myself further. And that's part of my personality. Like historically, like I had all these glass ceilings put on me, and I would stop after a certain point, or I'd stop at a bit of pain. And so I'd ask myself, like, why am I stopping at this pain? Because, and you'll see where it ties in, because the muscle's not broken. It's still getting blood. It's just needs to turn over the oxygen, carbon monoxide, or carbon dioxide, whatever is going on in the muscle. It needs to have a faster O2 turnover rate. And it's having a hard time, and that's what I'm feeling. And I'd ask myself, is this enough to quit, to really stop? And then I would hit that tapping, and I would imagine the symbol, and I would do this breath work that I learned from Joe Dispenza, and then I modified a little bit. And I would get these huge, just overwhelming waves of energy inside of me. And like literally everything inside me was completely refreshed, and I could keep going. It was like, I called it the breath of God. And it was just phenomenal. So, kind of in summary, like for me to start becoming a different person, I had to start pushing past my personal limits, pushing past the areas that I would not step into in the past. And when I would do that, the brain's like super uncomfortable. All the alarms are going off of like uncomfortable, discomfort, don't do this. Like, no, I'm going to do this anyway. I'm going to do this anyway. There's no punishment on the other side of this. Nothing's going to happen. And I'm not going to die. So every time I would do that, I would start becoming more of the person that I wanted to be. And I'm still doing that to this day. And I found like at 42, with everything I've been through, like my physical capabilities are doing pretty good right now. I'm not some super athlete, but even more than that, my internal world. I've got to the point where I've rewired my brain so much that I've handled things more stoically than I did in the past. I reacted emotionally, just severely emotionally. I carried a lot of family traumas and generational curses. And that stuff is passed on generation to generation to generation until you have a curse breaker. And I'm a curse breaker. And by doing that, I had to get rid of the old things that were passed on to me. And that was probably like so far one of the toughest works of my life. It's like the internal work that nobody else sees. Nobody's giving you an attaboy. Nobody's encouraging you. And actually on the outside, like people are discouraging you and treating you like shit. When you start to change and become a better person, like people will treat you like garbage. I learned that firsthand, and it still happens to this day. So I'll leave you with this. Like, if you are at the point like where you're like, I'm ready to change, there's no magic solution. It takes some hard work. It really does. But there are tools and techniques that you can use to help you on that path. So I've used this analogy before. Imagine your brain is like a mushroom. It has a certain formation right now where the energy goes. The character trigger is basically like this invisible mold that is a mental creation that you use in your mind to start changing the structure or the pathways in your brain. So if you're wanting to change, like write down on a sheet of paper, like the attributes that you want, the relationships that you want, where you want to be in a year. Focus on the person that it needs to be, not on the stuff you want to have. So I'll give you an example. Here's what I do. I imagine that I'm climbing a pyramid and that I am on an adventure to go find dragon eggs. And I have my family with me. And I'm a multi-billionaire, actually like a quadrillion billionaire. And that I have like the ultimate amount of resources. But if you saw the way I dressed, you would never guess I had the money. But I have a full team that helps me and my kids travel around the world to explore. And I imagine it's like, close my eyes and I look at that man. I'm like, okay, the ultimate capable adventurer. Like, what type of person does that person need to be? That people are magnetized to this person, that people trust this person, and that this person has just an intuition and a stoicism and an emotional caring level of caring that's just phenomenal, and an ability to connect with people, and that doesn't lose sight of like people's humanity. Like people on the side of the road, it's like that's still a human, because people with great wealth, they can become so disconnected. Just like I'm sure if you were in the military and you were a PFC or a specialist and you saw a captain or a colonel or a general and they're walking around with their belly and they're handing out coins and they're like, oh, good troops. You're like, that mother effer is so disconnected from the way crap works. They literally don't understand. And that's the truth. Like, they're so disconnected. But I want to be a man that is always connected to with the way things work. Like, to with the way labor works, to the struggle that people go through, to stay connected with my children. And that's the image I have, not necessarily the location or the stuff, but the core, the fundamentals, the character. So create a symbol. Write down those core fundamentals, what you want that person, the highest version of yourself to be. And you create a symbol, and then you read that character sheet and you look at that symbol and your brain starts associating the symbol with that character sheet. And then go get on a row machine. And as soon as you're ready to quit, think about that symbol, think about that character, and then go for 10 more seconds. That's all you got to do. Just 10 more seconds. And every time you do that, you're stepping into new territory. Every time you get up and you think about that symbol and then you do something you're not used to, like I'm going to wash the dishes. I'm going to make my bed. I'm going to take care of this task. I'm going to call this person. I'm going to think ahead. I'm going to dig deep and analyze my emotions. I'm going to start feeling through my emotions. That's one of the biggest challenges for a man in our society, to be emotional, to allow yourself to cry, allow yourself to get angry, to allow yourself to feel the pain and the suffering. Dig in there. There's internal storms that we hide, and that storm is still brewing. But when you step through that storm internally of emotions and you come out unscathed and you're like, oh, I can handle these emotions. Then the next time you just let them go internally and you feel them. Still waters run deep. I think the more stoic somebody is, the deeper they feel. Like they're really feeling it out. They are in so much control of their external features of their body, and they're so aware, but at the same time they're feeling their feelings through. Anyway, I want to challenge you to step through your feelings. Start feeling it out. It's okay for a man to cry. It's okay to get mad. But in this society, oh man, I am rambling yet again. Okay, in this society, what I've seen that it is this little bickering to see if you can trigger somebody else, to try to get somebody mad and videotape them getting mad. And when that can be done, it's like, oh, I won. They get mad. Oh, that's silliness. There really is. But emotions are part of the human experience. And if we ignore that, we're ignoring part of our humanity. I meant for this video to be like 12 minutes, but I went way over. Roadhouse, spiritual hard.